Hello everybody and welcome back to another Path of Exile 1 video. Today we're going to be doing a guide for the 40/40 challenges in Mirage League. For those of you that may not know, every expansion comes out with a new league, and every new league has its own set of challenges. Now these are going to be a set of tasks that you have to complete. Some of them are easy, like finishing the campaign, while others can be a little bit more difficult, like defeating the Uber Pinnacle bosses. But why should we engage with these challenges in the first place? For rewards, of course! This time around we have the Regalia cosmetic armor set that is up for grabs. Here's how it looks like in-game. At 12 challenges, you're going to get yourself some gloves. At 20, you're going to get some boots. At 28, you get yourself the body armor. And at 36, you get the hat. And for you completionists out there, getting all 40 challenges done is going to award you with a decorative trophy to place in your hideout. Make sure to whip that thing out in plain sight so you can show off your long, strong, golden pole to everyone that visits. We are still talking about the trophy, right? Anyways, here's what the full armor set looks like. It comes in 3 tiers. Tier 1 is minimalistic. Tier 2 has some cool glowy effects going on. And Tier 3, well, at that point, you are just aura farming. The armor set is also available for use in Path of Exile 2, so here's what that looks like in-game. Personally, I think the armor set looks fantastic in both games, but if you think it's a little bit too much, you can mix and match the pieces and change the tiers until you're satisfied with how it looks. Some might even say you could have it your way. Cosmetic rewards aside, I think the challenges are a great way for you to learn and experience the game. Now, people often say that Path of Exile 1 has an overwhelming amount of content, which is true, but the challenges also help give you a ton of direction. So whether you're brand new to the game, or a returning player, or a seasoned veteran that plays every league like myself, I hope you find this guide useful. Timestamps for each challenge are going to be in the description below, and this time around I've tried to group them together by category so you can sit down one afternoon and feed 2 birds with 1 scone. With that said, let's get started. Our first category is Campaign Challenges. Now, this is going to have you finishing the main story, completing some optional side quests, and doing a little bit of sightseeing. These challenges are super easy, and you probably already have them done if you've been playing actively. First up is Act Adversaries 1 and 2. For this challenge, you need to defeat every boss starting with Mervale in Act 1 and ending with Katava in Act 10. Next, we have Beneficial Bounties. This challenge has you doing optional side quests for passive skill points. The way forward starts in Act 1 and ends in the Western Forest of Act 2. Through Sacred Ground can be done at the Crypts in Act 2. Victario's Secrets is finished in the Sewers of Act 3. And the Abominable Spirit is completed in the Mines of Act 4. Then we have Helpful Hideaways. This challenge has you visiting each of the following areas: the Aspirant's Plaza by traveling through the portal in Act 3, the Menagerie by talking to Einhar in Act 2, the Mine Encampment by talking to Nico in Act 4, the Forbidden Sanctum by talking to Divinia in Act 10, King's March by talking to Johan in the Epilogue, the Rogue Arbor by using a Rogue Marker in Act 6, and the Monastery of the Keepers by talking to Aelith in Act 6. Our next category is Ascendancy. This one is going to have you specializing your character at different points in the game. First up is Achieve Ascension. This challenge has you doing the Normal Lab in Act 3, the Cruel Lab in Act 7, the Merciless Lab in Act 10, and the Uber Lab in Yellow Maps. The campaign labs can be accessed by unlocking Trials of Ascendancies in the campaign, and the Uber Lab can be entered by using an offering to the goddess, which you can find once you get to Yellow Maps. You also need to get a Bloodline class for this challenge, which can be done at the same time as the next task, which is Seized Strength. For this challenge, you have to defeat 7 of the Bloodline bosses. Now, most of these battles are going to require an entrance ticket that can be purchased from the Grand Exchange, so I'm going to recommend you to do the 7 cheapest or easiest ones for your build. First up, we have the Trial Master, which is related to the Ultimatum League mechanic. Grab yourself an Ultimatum Scarab and an Ultimatum Scarab of Dueling from the Grand Exchange, and then get a Tier 14 or higher map. Make sure to scour it so that it has no modifiers, and then we're going to go into the map and do the Ultimatum encounter. When you get to round 10, you should spawn the boss, who is pretty easy to defeat. Okay, for this one you want to use common sense when picking the mods on the Ultimatum. For example, if you are an armor build, don't take that mod that makes it so enemies ignore your armor. Do all of this and you should get this part of the challenge done. Our next boss is the King in the Mists, which is related to the Ritual League mechanic. Grab yourself an audience with the King from the Grand Exchange and then place it into your map device so you can fight the boss. Now this boss is pretty easy in terms of mechanics, but it is a multi-phased encounter. At some point you're going to have to do a maze mechanic, which requires you to walk into the wisps that point you in the direction of the exit. Do this correctly and you will find the exit and advance to the next phase. Do this wrong and you will fail this mechanic and die. Our next boss is Oshabi, which is related to the Harvest League mechanic. Go ahead and buy a Sacred Blossom from the Grand Exchange and then place it into your map and you'll be able to fight this boss. Oshabi is a pretty straightforward boss, but she does like to teleport around and go invulnerable. When this happens, I recommend opening up your map overlay and looking for the boss icon. She also does quite a lot of damage, so try your best not to get hit. The next boss is Farul, which is related to the Bestiary League mechanic. Grab yourself a Ferric Tiger Alpha from Asynchronous Trade, and then go to the Menagerie and right-click the Pal Sphere to place the beast into your Pal box. Now all you have to do is go to the Blood Altar and type in Farul. This is going to activate the boss encounter. This is another super easy one for you to do, so I'll let you figure out the boss mechanics here. The next boss is It That Was Tull and It That Was Esh, which are related to the Breach League mechanic. Grab yourself a Hive Brain Gland from the Grand Exchange and then put it into your map device, where you'll be taken to a fortress where you can fight the boss. These guys are pretty easy, but also kind of annoying because they have multiple phases. Make sure to not stand in goop, avoid the projectile attacks, and walk out of the gigantic area of effect ability that Esh does. If this one is a little bit too hard for you, then I recommend revisiting it after a couple upgrades. The entrance ticket is usually super cheap all the way throughout the league. Our next boss is Katarina, which is related to the Betrayal League mechanic. The entry ticket for this fight is the Syndicate Medallion, which unfortunately costs a lot of money. Consider learning Betrayal and farming the ticket yourself.
Ha! Storming in here like that. Completely disrespectful. No more deal. Go on then. How about a you say prison cell. I hear holiday.
Or you might want to skip her and fight one of the other bosses from the list instead. They're all kinda shitty in their own special way, so who you fight really comes down to the strengths and weaknesses of the build you happen to be playing. If you do fight Katarina, she is an absolute joke, so I'll let you figure out the boss mechanics there.
You can still join us.
Stop! I can bring them
It's
back.
your chance to bring
Join
back
us, I can
anyone
bring
you've
your
ever loved or
entire
cared
order
about.
back. Just give me.
Shut up!
And speaking of jokes, our final boss is Suresh of the Weeping Black, that is related to the Mirage League mechanic. The entry ticket for this fight is the Black Baria. You can buy it off the Grand Exchange, or you can find it through the Mirage mechanic in your maps. Once you have the ticket, place it into your map device and you'll be taken to fight Suresh. This guy is a glorified training dummy, and if you can avoid getting hit by his abilities, you'll also finish the Weeping Warlords Warfare Challenge. Nice. And that's it for the Ascendancy Challenges. Our third category is going to be Vendors. This is going to have you trading NPCs to complete vendor recipes. First up is Peddler's Produce 1. For this challenge, we'll need some flasks, jewelry, and some basic currency. We'll start with 3 flasks of the same tier that can be vendored for 1 flask of a higher tier. Then we're going to need 1 life flask and 1 mana flask that are the same tier. Vendoring these along with an orb of fusing is going to get you back a hybrid flask. Next, we'll need an iron ring and an active skill gem. Vendoring these together will give you a resistance ring based on the color of the gem. And last but not least, we're going to need a Jade, Amber, or Lapis amulet. Vendoring any 2 of these together is going to give you back a hybrid amulet that provides 2 attributes. Up next, we have Peddler's Produce 2. And for this challenge, we'll need some uniques, a 6-linked item, and an assortment of rares. We'll start with making the unique item. Go ahead and purchase the Feast Bind and Famine Bind belts from Asynchronous Trade. Vendor these belts with an Orb of Fusing to receive a unique belt that will finish this part of the challenge. Speaking of Orbs of Fusings, vendoring any 6-linked item will get you back 20 orbs. If you don't happen to have a 6-linked item, this can be purchased for cheap on Asynchronous Trade. Open up the trade menu and click the Socket Filter category, and here you can set the minimum number of links to 6. Now we have to get a Regal Orb. If your character is level 80 or above, you can gamble yourself 1 of every item that can be equipped. Otherwise, we'll have to run a Tier 8 map or higher and pick up some rare items from the ground. To complete this recipe, we need 1 of every item that can be equipped, so we're going to need 1 hat, 1 chest, 1 boot, 1 glove, 1 amulet, 1 belt, 2 rings, and 1 2-handed weapon. You can also vendor 2 one-handed weapons or 1 one-handed weapon and a shield. Those combinations work as well. Make sure that these items are rare and have an item level of at least 75, and then you can vendor them all in together to receive a Regal Orb. Lastly, we're going to need to vendor an item with Influence. The easiest way to do this is to buy an Influence weapon from Asynchronous Trade. You're going to open up the trade menu and set the item category to any weapon, and then set the stat filter to Has Influence. Once you have yourself an influenced item, get yourself a Blacksmith Whetstone and a Rustic Sash. Right, vendoring these together is going to get you back an influenced weapon with % increased physical damage. And that's it for the vendor recipe challenges. Our next category is currency, and this is going to have you using an assortment of different orbs to craft gear. Up first is Beginner's Basics. For this challenge, you have to use 1 Orb of Transmutation, Alteration, Augmentation, and Alchemy. Let's be real, guys, this is one of those challenges that needs no further explanation. You probably already have it done at the time of watching this video. Next up, we have Crafting Craze, and this challenge is going to have you using 15 of the following currencies the specified number of times. Some of these currencies are extremely common and affordable, while others might be a little bit more on the expensive side. Keep in mind that the currencies used in the crafting bench also count towards this challenge. This also applies to the crafting benches you find in Betrayal safe houses. So if you still haven't learned Betrayal yet, what are you doing, mate? This is your sign. Up next is Potent Premonition, and for this challenge you have to turn in divination cards that awards you with currency, gems, and 6 linked items. Now, the cheapest cards to use for this challenge is going to be Society's Remorse for Alteration Orbs, Doppelgangbang for a 20% quality gem, and the Porcupine for a 6-link short bow. You can purchase all of these cards in the Grand Exchange, and the 20% quality gems from the Doppelganger card can also be vendored in exchange for a Gem Cutter's Prism. You're going to need some of these for the next challenge, which is Glorious Gemcraft. For this challenge, you have to corrupt a gem to level 21 or 23% quality. You have to use 40 Gem Cutter's Prisms, and you have to have a total sum of 300% quality across all your equipped gems. For the corruption portion of this challenge, open up Asynchronous Trade and go to the Miscellaneous section. Set the minimum quality in gem level to 20, and then make sure you have Corrupted set to No. Click Search and start buying out the cheapest offerings on trade, and once you have a few gems, you can start Vol Orbing them and hope that you hit a beneficial corruption. The other two tasks are pretty self-explanatory. You simply have to use 40 Gem Cutter's Prisms and have 15 gems equipped with 20% quality each. I haven't tested this next part myself, but you might be able to use unique items to help you meet this quality requirement. For example, the Ashes of the Stars Amulet gives all active gems plus 20% to quality, and items like the Crest of Desire or Diala's Malefaction also provide you with increased quality to socketed gems. Next on the list is Coveted Currency, and for this challenge we have to use 7 Mirage currencies a specified number of times. Coin of Restoration and Desecration are going to be the cheapest ones to do. You have to buy yourself 5 of each from the Grand Exchange and then go to Asynchronous Trade to purchase 5 uncorrupted Seresh's Darkness unique belt. Once you have these items, restore the belt with the Coin of Restoration and then desecrate it with the Coin of Desecration. Do this 5 times and you'll get this part of the challenge complete. The next cheapest option is Crystallized Rancor, which can be bought off the Grand Exchange and used at the Harvest Horticrafting bench. Try and pick ones that have the cheapest life force requirement, and you should get this part complete. Now we can buy ourselves 10 Honored Incubators from the Grand Exchange. Alright, we can apply these to our equipped items and then kill monsters until the incubator pops. When this happens, you should get some gold or maybe a coin, and that should complete part of this challenge. The next cheapest option is the Sinistral Catalyst. You're going to buy 20 of these from the Grand Exchange, and you're going to use it on a belt, amulet, or ring to add quality. Then we're going to buy 3 Essence of Desolation from the Grand Exchange and use them to craft rare items. The next cheapest option at the time of making this video is the Coin of Knowledge. Purchase 5 of these from the Grand Exchange and then go to Asynchronous Trade to purchase 5 level 20 uncorrupted skill gems, okay? They need to be skill gems and they need to be uncorrupted, otherwise this item does not work. Okay, use the coins on the gems and you should have this challenge complete. And that's it for the currency challenges. Our next category is Mirage, and this is going to have you running maps while focusing on the new league mechanic. Up first is Mysterious Mirage, and for this challenge you'll have to find a Mirage in your map and interact with Varashta to choose a wish. A wish is basically a map modifier that's going to affect the difficulty and the reward of the Mirage encounter. Once you have chosen a wish, enter the Mirage and break the astral chains to complete the Mirage encounter as well as the challenge. Next we have Desecrated Djinn, which has you doing more of the same thing you just did. You need to choose 5 wishes, kill 10 rare monsters in the Mirage, and break 15 astral chains, which means completing 15 Mirage encounters. This one is pretty easy. I don't think there's much else for me to say. Up next we have Sacred Sigils, and wouldn't you know, this challenge has us doing more of the same shit. This time around we need to pay attention to the sigil while choosing our wish for the Mirage. The sigil is the little symbol or icon that appears on each wish. There's a total of 3 of them. We have Sigil of Navira, which is blue, Sigil of Kalari, which is beige, and Sigil of Razan, which is red. If you're wondering what these sigils do, they dictate the type of coins that can drop in the Mirage encounter. For example, let's say we wanted to farm out a Coin of Knowledge. That means we have to run wishes from Sigil Navira. Do a total of 50 wishes for each of the 3 sigils and you'll have this challenge complete. Next on the list is Wishful Willing, and for this challenge we have to pick 13 of the 20 available wishes. This one is super easy to do and you can probably get it done while doing Sacred Sigils. Just keep an eye out for wishes that you haven't done and prioritize doing them over the ones you've already completed. The next challenge is Empowered Encounters, which has us completing other League mechanics while we're inside the Mirage. There's a ton of options here for you to choose from, but the 4 quickest mechanics in my opinion are going to be the Mirrors of Delirium, the Smuggler's Caches, the Kalguran Ore Deposits, and the Unstable Breaches. To get this one done quickly, grab yourself some Delirium Scarabs, Kalguran Scarabs, and Breach Scarabs of Instability from the Grand Exchange. Use these while doing your maps, and keep in mind that there's a chance that these League mechanics don't get recreated inside the Mirage. If that happens, you'll just have to run a couple more maps with the Scarab setup to get this challenge complete. And that's it for the Mirage Challenges. Our next category is Mechanics, and this is going to have you engaging with a variety of the different League mechanics. Up first is Atlas Additions, and for this challenge we have to run any 5 of the following League mechanics a specified number of times. Once again, we have a ton of options to choose from, so you can either set up your Atlas to farm a specific League strategy, or you can buy some Scarabs from the Grand Exchange and use them while you run your maps. The easiest ones to do here, in my opinion, are the Legion Monoliths, the Smuggler's Caches, the Mirrors of Delirium, the Kalguran Ore Deposits, and the Unstable Breaches. If this sounds familiar, well, that's because it is. We just did 4 of these for the Empowered Encounters challenge. Use the same Scarabs as before while adding the Legion Scarab into the mix, or if you finish the other encounters first, you can always use more Legion Scarabs in their place. Legion is one of those League mechanics that you can have multiple encounters within the same map. Next up is Added Accessories, and for this challenge we have to run any 3 of the following League mechanics a specified number of times. Now these are extremely common mechanics which you will find in your maps. In fact, some of them like Essences, Shrines, Strongboxes all start appearing as early as Act 1 in the campaign. I can almost guarantee you that you will have this challenge complete just by passively playing the game. And if not, pick your poison, throw in some Scarabs, and run some maps. You'll have this complete in no time. The next challenge is Deadly Deeds, and this one is considerably more difficult than the previous ones we've done for this category. To complete this challenge, you'll have to run any 5 of the following encounters while the area level is 81 or higher. We'll start with Abyssal Depths, which is related to the Abyss League mechanic. Grab yourself an Abyss Scarab of Descending from the Grand Exchange and a T16 map. If your build is on the weaker side, you can always run this strategy on a T14 map that has been scoured to have no modifiers. It'll be a lot easier than a rare T16. Once you have your map, place it alongside the Scarab into the map device and run the map. Inside, we're going to be looking for the Abyss Encounter, and once we successfully finish it, it's going to lead us into the Abyssal Depths. Here, we'll face off against the Abyssal Lich, which is a mini boss fight that should be pretty easy for you to figure out. Do this 5 times and you'll have this portion of the challenge complete. Next, we're going to do Logbooks, which is related to the Expedition League mechanic. Open up Asynchronous Trade and search for Expedition Logbook. Then you want to go to Map Filters and set the minimum area level to 81. Once you've bought your logbook, scour it so it has no modifiers, and then talk to Danig in your hideout. Click Show Expedition Map and place your logbook into the slot as if you were about to run a map. You're going to select one of the options, it doesn't really matter which, and then you're going to click Open Portals. Go back to your map device and there should be 6 portals waiting for you that will take you to the expedition site. This is where things get a little tricky. If you press tab, you're going to be overwhelmed by the UI boss. There's a lot of icons here, but I want you to focus on the razor blade looking thingy with the bright blue centers. These are remnants, and remnants add a reward and difficulty modifier to the expedition encounter. What we need to do is set up our chain of explosives so that it detonates at least 10 remnants in order to finish the challenge. Make sure you don't take any remnants that brick your build. For example, the character I am playing now deals physical damage, so I want to be careful and avoid taking remnants that make monsters immune to physical damage. Make sure you kill every monster that is unearthed by the detonation, and then repeat this 4 more times to complete this part of the challenge. Up next is Tier 4 Harvest Seeds, which is, you guessed it, related to the Harvest League mechanic. Grab yourself a Harvest Scarab and a Harvest Scarab of the Cornucopia from the Grand Exchange. If you want things to be easy, then I recommend running a Tier 14 map that has been scoured to have no modifiers. But if you want to make some money in the process, then you can do this strategy on a Tier 16 rare map alongside a Harvest Scarab of Dublin. This is going to make the harvest monsters more difficult, but they're also going to drop more loot, and loot in this case is going to be the Harvest Life Force, which can be bought and sold on the Grand Exchange. Once you've decided which strategy you want to do, put the scarabs and the map into the map device, and you're going to run it and look for the Sacred Grove. Our goal here is to complete the Tier 4 Harvest encounters, which spawn a unique boss. If you're lucky, you'll be able to do 3 bosses in a map, and if you're very lucky, you can look to see if the Mirage recreated the Harvest encounter, so you can have another shot at the bosses. But the reverse can also be true. If you're unlucky, you're only going to find 2 bosses in the map, the Mirage is not going to recreate the Harvest, and you're going to have to run another map or 2 with the same Scarab setup to finish this portion of the challenge. Next, we have to kill Breach Marshals, which is related to the Breach mechanic. When you run an unstable Breach, there is a chance that a unique monster spawns when you stabilize the Breach. Kill this monster 10 times and you'll have this portion of the challenge complete. If you picked the Breach mechanic for the previous challenges like Empowered Encounters and Atlas Editions, then you probably already have this partially or fully complete. And if not, you can grab yourself a Breach Scarab of the Marshal alongside 2 Breach Scarabs of Instability and run this setup in your maps. Once again, if you want things to be easy, you can do this on a Tier 14 map that has been scoured to have no modifiers. And don't forget to check the Mirage to see if the Breach has been recreated, then you can run it again in the Mirage and get more progress towards your challenge. And to wrap things up, I've saved the easiest task for last, which is claiming rewards from rare maps run by your Atlas runners. Atlas runners can be hired in King's March for gold. Higher tier runners cost more gold, but they also have a higher likelihood of successfully completing maps. Once you've assembled the Avengers, grab yourself some tier 14 maps and transmute them to make them magic. You're going to spam alteration orbs until the maps only have 1 modifier, so in this case we're looking for either a 1 suffix or 1 prefix magic map. Then we're going to use a Regal Orb to add a 2nd modifier and make the item rare. If you did this correctly, you should have a 2 mod rare map that is going to have the highest odds of being fully completed by your Atlas runners. Toss them into the King's March map device, make sure you have some money in the coffer, and then let your runners take care of the rest. You might want to check up on them occasionally just to make sure that none of them have been kidnapped or killed, because if that does happen, the mappers will get put on hold and you'll have to come back in and resume the progress manually. Alright, successfully run a total of 30 maps and you'll have Deadly Deeds complete. Our next challenge is Cross-Contamination, and this is one of my favorite challenges on the 40/40 list. So we're going to shake things up a little, we're going to do this one live, and what we have to do for this challenge is complete any 4 of the following league encounters while they are interacting with another league mechanic. Okay, so you might have to do something like defeating a unique map boss while it is possessed, while it is in a ritual, or you might have to do something like defeating a delirium boss while in the Sacred Grove. Now, the 4 easiest ones to do are actually the first 4 that you see up here. So we want to defeat a Breach Marshal while delirious. We want to defeat a Stygian Spire while affected by a shrine. We want to defeat an Essence monster that is possessed. And we want to defeat a Blight boss while affected by a Tempest. Okay, so in order to do this, we're going to need a couple of scarabs as well as a map. So go to your Atlas map device. We're going to want a tier 16 map. The modifiers you have on it don't matter, so you can scour it if that makes things easier for you. Then we're going to want a Delirium Orb. The reward of the orb doesn't matter. The only reason we're using this is to force spawn the Delirium mechanic while we're in the map. So you're going to use your Delirium Orb on your normal T16 map. Alright, and then we're going to pick a tile set that is a little bit claustrophobic. It's something like Haunted Mansion is really good. That means that there's a higher chance that these mechanics spawn next to one another. So let's go ahead, we'll put our map in, and then let's talk about the scarabs that we need. We need 1 Blight Scarab to force spawn the Blight mechanic. We want a Blight Scarab of Blooming. This guarantees that you will have the unique Blight bosses in your Blight encounter. Then we want a Scarab of Radiant Storms. This is going to make sure that the Tempest mechanic is active in your map. Then we want a Breach Scarab of Instability to get an Unstable Breach, and the Breach Scarab of the Marshal to make sure that the Unstable Breach spawns a unique boss while it is stabilized. So go ahead and put all of these into your Scarab slots, and then we can activate the map. Alright, once we're inside the map, let's start scouting to see where the mechanics are. You might see some other mechanics in there as well. For example, right now I have the Betrayal mechanic. In that case, I would just recommend completing them before you do the tasks, or just ignoring them. That's fine too. Alright, so it looks like the Unstable Breach is right here, and the map is delirious, as you can see. So we're going to open up the Unstable Breach and start killing monsters, and once we stabilize it, the Marshal should spawn.
We're going!
My spirits are spent.
Okay, we got the Breach stabilized. That one was pretty close, so if you can add a little bit of pack size by putting modifiers in your map, maybe that's not a terrible idea. But here is the Breach Marshal. He is... he's dead. Okay, so doing that while you are delirious should finish the first task of the Cross-Contamination challenge. Alright, now we can focus our attention to the next part, which is the Blight mechanic, while we're in a Tempest. So let's go find the Blight encounter. Okay, so here is the Blight encounter. You're going to talk to Cassia. You can skip the waiting time if your build is strong enough. You won't need towers for this. And what we're going to do is make sure we're standing in these little Tempests that show up. So let's see if one spawns. I haven't seen a Tempest on me just yet. There's one. Oh, it's gone. There's the Tempest right there. You'll get the effect for 20 seconds, so that gives you 20 seconds while under the effect of the Tempest to kill the boss. Right here, the boss, they have minimap icons. You can see here, Cross-Contamination task has been complete. Okay, so that's all you need to do for getting 2 out of those 4 things done. Alright, now we can focus on doing the other 2 tasks in this challenge, which is defeating a Stygian Spire while affected by a shrine, and defeating an Essence monster that is possessed. Just like before, I recommend that you take a map with no modifiers. You can put it into the map device, Haunted Mansion. Once again, a good tile set to do this on. Right, we're going to want to use an Essence Scarab so we can have 3 additional imprisoned monsters in the map. Then we want to use a Torment Scarab of Possession. This is going to give those Essence monsters a chance to be possessed. Then we want to use the Abyss Scarab to guarantee the Abyss mechanic in our maps, followed by the Abyss Scarab of Edifice. This is going to make it so that abysses in the area have a high chance of leading to a Stygian Spire. Lastly, we want to put in that Domination Scarab, and then we can click Activate and head into the map. Alright, we're in. Just like before, we're going to start scouting. So it looks like we have an Essence monster here that has been possessed by a Tormented Spirit. Let's go ahead and kill that super quick. Alright, so that should be 1 task complete. It looks like I also got a memory tear here, so I'm going to go ahead and loot this Memory of Irreverence. Alright, here is one of our shrines. And now we just need to find the Abyss mechanic. Alright, here's shrine number 2. Alright, looks like the Abyss mechanic is tucked away in the corner over here. We're going to walk into it and follow it around, and hopefully it ends up near a shrine. Alright, if your character has a ton of damage, you want to be very careful because you don't want to accidentally kill the Abyssal Spire. Oh, there's... Oh my god, am I doing that? Okay. Well, I killed the Abyssal Spire, so... My bad. There's another one. I hope I don't kill this one. I killed that one too. Okay, so, yeah. Let's try that again. Okay, here's an Abyssal Spire over there. We're gonna go grab a shrine, and then we'll walk back, and we should be able to finish the challenge. Okay, there we go. And that's it. You should have all 4 of the tasks complete, and cross-contamination is finished. I'm gonna wrap this map up, and I'll see you for the next challenge. And that's it for the mechanics challenges. Our next category is mapping, and this is going to have us doing a wide assortment of tasks while running maps. Up first is Master Missives, and this challenge has us completing Master Mission encounters in Tier 11 or higher maps. The easiest one to do are going to be Nico for Delve and Einhar for Bestiary. Grab yourself some Sulfite and Bestiary Scarabs alongside some T11 or higher maps. For this challenge, I recommend using linear tile sets. Maps like Racecourse or Strand are going to make it very easy for you to find the Master Mission encounters. Do this for a total of 30 times and you'll have this challenge complete. Next we have Cartographer's Courage, and this has us running a rare version of every map tier. You're almost guaranteed to passively complete this challenge while working on your Atlas progression. But if you're like me, you might have to go back and run a rare version of the Tier 1 through 5 maps. This one is very straightforward, there's not much else for me to say. Our next challenge is Maniacal Monsters, which has us killing map bosses in rare maps while they have at least 80% item quantity. Now this is a good time to go over some tips and tricks of how to add item quantity to your maps. First of all, we can add modifiers to the map. As a rule of thumb, the more modifiers you have, the higher the item quantity will be in your maps. Next, we can use Sacrifice Fragments in our Scarab slots. Each one of these is going to add 5% item quantity to the map. If you have a strategy that doesn't require a lot of Scarabs, you can buy these for cheap on the Grand Exchange and use them to boost the item quantity when doing this challenge. Another way for us to add quantity to our maps is going to be using the Atlas passive skill tree. There are a handful of item quantity nodes in the very center of the tree, and grabbing all of it is going to give you 15% item quantity to your maps. Speaking of the Atlas, another way to add quantity is to complete bonus objectives on your maps. Every 4 objectives you complete is going to give you 1% increased quantity. And this stacks all the way up until you finish 100 bonus objectives for a total of 25% increased quantity. Nice! But we're not done yet. Another way for us to add item quantity is going to be to use map effect modifiers in our Atlas passive skill tree. Now I need to warn you that doing this makes the map considerably harder. That's because the map effect modifier increases the quantity as well as the severity of the mods we have on the map. There is a total of 32% increased map effect on the Atlas tree, and there are also 2 conditional increases based on how many fragments you use and the number of modifiers you can have on the map. But we're still not done. The last way for you to add item quantity to your maps is going to be running Eldritch Altars. You can either put red Searing Exarch influence or blue Eater of Worlds influence on your maps. And these can spawn altars inside your maps that increase the rewards and difficulty of monsters. One of these rewards is going to be item quantity, but this is a little bit reliant on RNG, so sometimes you might get a map with a lot of item quantity on altars, and other times you might not see it at all. But if you mix and match everything that we talked about, you should be easily able to get to 80% item quantity for your maps. At that point, you simply have to crank out 200 map boss kills and you'll have this challenge complete. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure maps with multiple bosses like City Square count towards this challenge. You might also be able to double up on your progress by getting the map bosses are duplicated modifier while rolling your map. You should also check to see if the map bosses are recreated in the Mirage. That's going to make things go a lot faster. Next up is Remarkable Realms, and I want to start by saying my condolences. This challenge has you completing 17 unique maps. Most of them are easy, some of them are annoying, and all of them can be obtained in asynchronous trade. Thankfully, I only need to talk you through 2 of these maps, and that's going to be the Vinctar Square and the Doriani's Machinarium. Let's start with the easy one first, and that is Vinctar Square. In order to obtain this item, we're going to need to complete a vendor recipe. Open asynchronous trade and purchase Agnerod North, East, South, and West. Vendoring these items together is going to give you the Vinctar Square. Next is Doriani's Machinarium, which costs 20 divines at the time of making this video. Yes, 20 divines, and the price is only expected to go up the further we get into the league. If you're wondering why that is, it's because the map is only available from 2 sources. First is an RNG drop from the Grand Architect boss from Delve, and second is an RNG drop from Rin in the Fortification Betrayal Safehouse. Once again, if you haven't learned Betrayal yet, what are you doing, mate? This is your sign. Didn't I already say that? The rest of the maps need no explanation. If you've never done them before, most of them have been designed by the player community, so love it or hate it, you have your fellow exiles to thank. The next challenge is Succinct Scarabs, and to put things succinctly, you have to complete maps with any 8 of the following scarabs for a total of 30 times. Our next challenge is...
Whoa, you're not gonna explain it any further?
Alright, fine. For this challenge, I recommend using the cheapest scarabs you can find on the Grand Exchange. Unfortunately, prices are always changing, so you really just have to look this one up for yourself. If you want an external resource to help do this easier, I recommend using PoE Ninja. There's an economy section with a scarab category where you can find the price and volume of actively traded items. Up next, we have Tyrannical Tiers, and for this challenge, we need to reach a sum of 8,000 map tiers from completing maps. Completing means killing the map boss, so if you've been running strategies where you skip the boss, you've probably been missing out on progress towards this challenge. This one is painfully straightforward. Complete a tier 1 map and you get a +1 to your progress. Complete a tier 16 map and you get +16 to your progress. This challenge is either going to feel breezy or have you getting greasy depending on your playstyle. If you want to get things done fast, I recommend running T16 Mesa with no map modifiers. The boss is in a very predictable and easy to find place, so you put in your map, rush the boss, portal out, rinse, and repeat. But keep in mind that 8,000 divided by 16 is still 500 maps, so even with this strategy at 1 map per minute, accommodating for loading screens and going to your hideout, you're still looking at 8 hours to finish this challenge. Next up is Magnificent Memories, and for this challenge you need to complete originator-influenced maps with a sum of 2,500% item quantity. Just like the previous challenge, running a map with 100% quantity gives you plus 100 progression towards this challenge. Remember to use the tips and tricks we talked about for the Maniacal Monsters challenge. You can either run these on standalone originator-influenced maps, or you can do them with memory threads. The benefit of doing a memory thread is that sometimes you'll get an originator altar for completing your map. This can give you item quantity towards the next map in the thread. If you want to do this method, then purchase a memory from the Grand Exchange and then talk to Aegon in your hideout to use the thread on a map on your atlas. This is going to create a memory chain, which is a sequence of maps for you to complete. The maps can be rolled in Aegon's map device inventory, and you can also use up to 4 fragments while doing this strat. Do this for a total of 2,500% item quantity, and you'll have this challenge complete. Last but not least is Sandswept Survivor, and for this challenge you need to engage with the Mirage mechanic in maps that are T14 or higher, rare, and have at least 100% item quantity. Once again, remember to use the tips and tricks we talked about for the Maniacal Monsters challenge. I recommend doing this passively while you work on other challenges in this category. Complete a total of 150 Mirages by breaking the astral chain, and you'll have this challenge complete. And that's it for the mapping challenges. Our next category is Astrolabes, and this is going to have us interacting with a brand new Atlas mechanic that was added in Mirage League. Before we discuss the challenges in this category, I want to give you a quick crash course on Astrolabes. These are currency items that drop from map bosses, and they can be used at Aegon to shape a region of your atlas. Shaping a region means putting a shiny blob on it, and maps inside this blob receive bonus modifiers. Successfully completing a shaped map shrinks the size of the blob, and any remaining maps in that region are made more difficult and more rewarding. When the blob completely disappears, Aegon will grant you access to a memory vault. This vault contains rewards, and the value of those rewards depends on how many maps we completed before the blob disappeared. So, to recap, Astrolabes shape a region of your atlas. Completing maps inside this region shrinks the blob and empowers the remaining maps in that region. At the end, we'll get to pick a reward from a vault. The more maps we complete, the better that reward will be. With the explanation out of the way, let's get back to the challenges. First up is Atlas Astrolabes, and this is going to have us running maps in regions that have been shaped. There is a wide assortment of Astrolabes to choose from, and most of them are related to a League mechanic. For example, the Lightless Astrolabe is related to Abyss, while the Runic Astrolabe is related to Expedition. In order to successfully complete a map, we have to finish the League mechanic that is associated with the Astrolabe. So once again, if we choose the Lightless Astrolabe, we'll have to finish the Abyss encounter in our maps to get progress for this challenge. Like I said, there is a lot of options to choose from. The easiest ones, in my opinion, are the Lightless Astrolabe that has you doing Abyss, the Timeless Astrolabe which has you doing Legion, the Runic Astrolabe which has you doing Expedition, and the Templar Astrolabe which has you killing map bosses. Sometimes there's going to be an extra condition for us to fulfill. For example, the Timeless Astrolabe requires us to kill a Legion General during the Legion encounter, and the Runic Astrolabe requires us to activate at least half the remnants during the expedition encounter. Once you've decided on what 4 mechanics you want to run, we have to do a total of 30 maps for each Astrolabe. That's going to be a total of 120 maps. The maps also have to be rare and at least tier 14, so if your build is still feeling a little bit weak, you might want to use that Transmute Regal trick we used in the Deadly Deeds challenge to make a 2-mod rare map. Next up is Eldritch Evocation, and for this challenge we have to activate Eldritch Altars on maps affected by the Astrolabe. You can use the Influencing Scarab of the Hordes and grab the related Atlas passive skills to increase the number of altars you find in each map. And don't forget to do the Mirage inside each of these maps. The altars you find there also contribute towards the progress in this challenge. Activate a total of 200 Eldritch Altars while doing your Astrolabe maps, and you'll have this challenge done in no time. The next challenge is Vaulted Valuables, and this is a really easy one to do that you might complete while doing the other challenges in this category. It requires you to receive any 3 of the following rewards a specified number of times. Remember, you gain access to these rewards for completing an Astrolabe. The more maps you ran, the better your rewards will be. But more importantly, the region you shaped determines the types of rewards you can get. For example, shaping the bottom right quadrant leads you to the Archon's Vault. This contains maps and map fragments. Shaping the top left quadrant leads you to the Machinist's Vault, and this is going to contain currency and unique items. Make sure you're cycling through the different regions while running your Astrolabes, and you'll have this challenge complete before you know it. Up next is Tremendous Tempests, which has you killing map bosses in rare T16 shaped maps that have at least 150% item quantity. Okay, now that's a lot to chew on, so I'm gonna say it again. We need to kill bosses in a tier 16 map with lots of quantity in a region that is shaped by an Astrolabe. Alright, this one is a lot easier than it sounds. We're going to increase item quantity of our maps the same way we did for the Maniacal Monsters challenge. And just like before, keep an eye out to see if the map boss gets recreated in the Mirage mechanic. I am 99% sure that this counts towards the challenge progress when it happens. If your build is strong enough, you can also do this while working on the other challenges in this category. Otherwise, you're just going to have to do this separately and crank out another 75 maps to complete Tremendous Tempests. And that's it for the Astrolabe Challenges. Our next category is bossing, and this is going to have us throwing hands with some of the hardest boss encounters in the game. First up is Lethal Leaders, and this challenge requires us to defeat 6 bosses related to different league mechanics. First up we have Adversaries, and to access this fight, you need to buy yourself 1 of every mortal fragment from the Grand Exchange. Place them into your map and you'll be taken to the alluring abyss to fight Adversaries. The fight itself is pretty straightforward, although I highly recommend that you have a source of reflect immunity, bleed removal, and enough mobility to dodge hard-hitting area of effects. Next up is Azaro, and to access this fight, buy yourself a dedication to the goddess from the Grand Exchange. Take it to the Aspirants Plaza, and here you'll be allowed entrance into the Uber Labyrinth. This fight is also quite trivial. What you really want to watch out for is the Labyrinth traps. These do a lot more damage and are a lot more annoying than the ones you've encountered previously. Next we have the Abyssal Lich. You should already have this complete if you've been following this guide and did the Deadly Deeds challenge. But if not, grab yourself an Abyss Scarab of Descending from the Grand Exchange alongside a T13 or higher map. Place this into your map device and finish the Abyss encounter in the map. Doing so is going to take you to the Abyssal Depths, where you can fight the Abyssal Lich. The next boss is the Val Omnitect, which is related to the Incursion mechanic. Open up Asynchronous Trade and type in Chronicle. Open the map filter and set the minimum area level to 80. Then go to the stat filter and type in Apex. Select Has Apex of Atzoatl and set the condition to Open Room. Purchase the Chronicle and take it to your map device, and here you're going to need to find the Temple of Atzoatl on your atlas. This one's going to be a little difficult for you to find. Place the temple into your map device and then run it. Once inside, you're going to make your way to the very top of the temple, where you'll face off against the Val Omnitect. Up next is the Vox Twins, which is related to the Heist mechanic. Open up Asynchronous Trade and type in Twins. Purchase the Unique Contract and take it to the Rogue Arbor. Here you want to talk to Adia, and you'll be able to run the contract with Kurai as your hire. Make your way to the end of the heist, and there you'll face off against Vic and his cousin Vinny. Our last lethal leader is going to be the Beyond bosses, Katesh, Gore, and Bidet. These bosses spawn exclusively from the Beyond mechanic, and you're going to need to grab yourself a tier 13 or higher map with lots and lots of monster pack size. The higher it is, the easier it's going to be to spawn the bosses. Once you have your map set up, grab the following scarabs from the Grand Exchange. 1 Beyond Scarab, 1 Beyond Scarab of Hemophilia, 1 Beyond Scarab of Resurgence, 1 Beyond Scarab of Invasion, and 1 Breach Scarab of Instability. Now we want to pick a map tile set that is both open and has a low surface area. Something like City Square is going to be perfect for this challenge. Run your map and try to kill as many monsters as you can using the unstable breaches to spawn even more enemies. Kill enough enemies and the Beyond portals will coalesce, spawning the Beyond boss, which you can defeat to finish this challenge. Our next challenge is Instigative Invitation, and this has us running Maven Witness boss encounters in order to do Maven Invitations with Kurek. We need to complete all of the following invitations while they have at least 4 modifiers. This challenge requires a solid build as well as a ton of items, so get that notepad out, it's time for us to make a list. We need 4 Shaper Guardian maps to witness the Formed, 4 Elder Guardian maps to witness the Twisted, 4 Conqueror maps to witness the Elder Slayers, each of the 4 Unique Synthesis maps to witness the Forgotten, each of the 3 Originator Memories to witness the Remembered, each of the 4 Conqueror Crests to witness Cirrus, each of the 4 Guardian Fragments to witness Shaper, each of the 4 Elder Fragments to witness Elder, 1 Echo of Reverence to witness the Incarnation of Dredge, 1 Cortex Unique map to witness Venarius, 1 Screaming Invitation to fight the Eater of Worlds, and 1 Incandescent Invitation to fight the Searing Exarch. Some tips and tricks for this challenge is that you can use the Blessed Orb to reroll the type of Elder, Guardian, and Conqueror maps. If your build is on the weaker side, only the invitations need to be rolled to have 4 modifiers. That means you can run all your Maven Witnesses on scoured maps with no modifiers. But just to give you a heads up, if you can run these maps at 100% quantity or higher, then you'll be making a ton of progress towards the most difficult and grindiest challenge on the list. And just in case you're a newer player that doesn't know what Maven Witnessing is, it's when you select the Maven Influence option before you run a map. The Maven shows up in your map to observe and interfere with the map boss encounter, and when you kill the boss, it becomes witnessed for her invitation. Once you have all the fights witnessed, you can talk to Kurek and roll the invitation in his map device inventory using currency. Alkan Scour Spam is going to be your best bet, but if you want to be extra picky with the modifiers, you can Transmute, Augment, Regal, and Exalt to get 4 modifiers that are easier for you to do on your build. Do this for every invitation on the list, except the Screaming and Incandescent ones. Those can be rolled in your inventory, and you'll have this challenge complete. Also, here's how the feared fight went for me.
No, 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 no.
Next up is Nightmare Nemeses, and this challenge has you facing off against 4 of the 5 Nightmare map bosses while they have at least 175% item quantity. Once again, we're going to be using the tips and tricks from the Maniacal Monster challenge to juice the item quantity of our map. Nightmare maps can only be modified by Chaos Orbs, and the modifiers tend to be a lot more difficult than the ones on the regular maps. Because of this, I'm going to recommend you to use a Scarab of Stability, which you can buy on the Grand Exchange. This Scarab gives a chance for portals to not be consumed when entering the map. That means if you start the map with 6 portals, there's a good chance that you might be able to get 9 attempts while doing your Nightmare bosses. Fun fact, the bosses can also be recreated in the Mirage encounter. That means fighting it inside the Mirage with a beneficial wish can actually make this challenge a lot easier. You only have to do 4 of the 5 Nightmare maps, so you can skip the one you dislike or the one that is most difficult for your build. Up next is Uber Undertaking, and for this challenge we have to defeat any 5 of the 10 Uber Pinnacle bosses. This is probably the most difficult task on the list, so if your build is not a bosser, you might want to consider using a carry service to finish this challenge. Open up the Path of Exile official website and click on the forums. Now you're going to click on Index and scroll down to the community section. Here, click on Communities and look for players listing their boss carry services. Click on any one of these threads and follow the instructions. Usually you have to bring your own boss fragments as well as pay a fee. Whether or not you get to keep the loot from the boss depends on the person hosting the service. Pick the 5 bosses that are the cheapest for you to access, and you'll have the Uber Undertaking challenge complete. And that's it for the bossing challenges. But our next challenge is so monumental, instrumental, continental. Okay, those are obviously just big words, but it's a pretty big challenge, so I think it's deserving of a category of its own. The next challenge is Gallant Grinding Goals, and for this one you need to complete 4 of the grindiest tasks that are available in the game. Feel free to pick any 4 that look good to you, but the easiest ones in my opinion are completing maps with Scarabs, completing Guardian maps, defeating rare monsters, and defeating map bosses while you're in the Mirage encounter. Let's start with the first task, which is completing T16 maps with Scarabs. You need to use a total of 1,000 Scarabs, so if you're starting this from scratch, that's approximately 200 maps you're going to need to run to finish this task. Remember, completing a map just means killing the map boss, so if you really wanted to fast track this grind, you could just boss rush Mesa with Scarabs like we did for the Tyrannical Tiers challenge. Our next task is completing 50 Guardian maps with at least 100% item quantity. Guardian maps include Shaper, Elder, Conqueror, and Aegon memory maps. Once again, we're going to be using the tips and tricks from the Maniacal Monsters challenge to improve the item quantity on our map. The fastest way to do this is going to be to purchase Conqueror maps from Asynchronous Trade. These maps can now be run on any tileset, so you know what that means. We're going to be doing a lot more boss rushing in Mesa. Sheesh. Up next is defeating 250 rare monsters with at least 4 modifiers while in T16 maps. This one is super easy. There's a ton of ways you may have organically ran into a rare with 4 or more modifiers. If you want to fast track this challenge, you can force monsters to spawn with more modifiers by using the Horned Scarab of Nemeses, which you can buy on the Grand Exchange. Remember to run the Mirage encounter if you do this, because these scarabs also apply to recreated monsters. And last but certainly not least is defeating 100 map bosses in Mirages of rare maps that are at least tier 16 and have 80% item quantity. Once again, we're going to be using the tips and tricks from the Maniacal Monsters challenge to increase the item quantity of our map. Once you have rolled your map, you need to go to the Grand Exchange and purchase yourself a Domination Scarab of Terror and 4 Domination Scarabs. This is going to add shrines to your map, and each of those shrines is going to be protected by a map boss. Now you need to go into your Atlas passive tree and grab the following passives. You want Supplication for +1 shrines in your map, Drawn to Power for monster pack size in your shrines, and All That Glitters for a chance to spawn a Covetous shrine. Once you've done everything I mentioned, place your map and scarabs into the map device, select the Haunted Mansion tileset, and activate your map. Inside, you're going to find a ton of shrines, and like I said earlier, those shrines are going to be protected by map bosses. There should be at least 14 shrines, and most of them are going to be recreated inside the Mirage encounter. Complete the map, and you'll make a ton of progress towards finishing this task. If you want to fast track it, you can run the strategy on an astral map, which contains an empowered Mirage that recreates the entire map. Do this a few more times and you'll have Gallant grinding goals complete. And that's it for the 40-40 challenges. Hooray! The only thing left to talk about is what challenges you should skip if you're only trying to get 36 out of 40 challenges. If you're short on time, consider skipping Tyrannical Tiers, Tremendous Tempests, Atlas Astrolabes, and Gallant grinding goals. These challenges are going to take you the longest amount of time, and they involve you running hundreds and hundreds of maps. If you're short on currency, consider skipping Remarkable Realms, Coveted Currency, Nightmare Nemeses, and Instigative Invitations. These challenges either have you directly using currency, investing it into your build, or spending it on carry services in order to get the completion. And if you're new to the game, or simply just a for-fun, casual player that doesn't have the strongest build, consider skipping Nightmare Nemeses, Uber Undertaking, Instigative Invitations, and Gallant grinding goals. These challenges have you facing off against some of the toughest encounters in the game, and it took me several years before I could do them. And that's a wrap! I wish you the best of luck with completing your challenges, and I hope you found this video useful. If you did, make sure to like and comment down below, and if you want to see more projects like this in the future, make sure to click that subscribe button. Seriously guys, your support really does help the channel. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon with a new video. Bye!